Welcome to another LinkedIn Insights with me, Geoffrey Klein. As always, I try and bring guests that are going to bring value and who I like to talk to. Today is no exception. We have Coach Les Hill, who is an integrity coach and a coacher of coaches. So there's a great distinction, but we'll find out more. So good morning, Les. How are you?
Good morning, Geoffrey. I am peachy keen. Well, I shouldn't say I'm peachy because I'm actually purple with my wine tie on for the special occasion. I like to,
Very nice.
yes, so I'm doing great.
Well, obviously,
Thank you very
purple,
much.
we'll talk about color later, but purple will always
BTP,
So-
as they say, better than phenomenal.
So I'm going to ask you 9 questions and we'll just see how we go. So the first one's really hard. Who are you and what do you do?
So I am Coach Les, and what do? I'm an integrity coach, and what does that mean? It's actually something that I have just recently distinguished in a whole new way, thanks to somebody that I was in a conversation with, who I am starting to put into that mentorship class because he is making such a difference in my world in such a short amount of time. And he said, Les, I've never met anybody with the skill at communication with difficult situations and problem solutions. And he said it a couple different ways, so I'll say it another way as well. Communication skills problem solver and a difficult situation communicator. And I thought, wow, it always seems to be that way. How I work, I've been a coach now for almost 20 years. And I've coached close to 5,000 people, and 1,000 of that 1,000 coaches. And some of them, of course, that's a big number, right? I happen to work at a personal training and development company where I had the opportunity to coach a lot of people in a short amount of time.
Impressive.
So
now you said it sounded. My question is about what problem you solve, and it sounds like communication. Is that the main problem you're solving for people?
Yeah. Yep. In today's world, communication, especially as, I'm going to probably be speaking to the choir when I say this, right? But with any kind of media, texting, email, social media, any of it, there is a huge difficulty in communicating context. It is almost impossible. And so I have found this niche of finding people that are miscommunicating a lot by email. They're miscommunicating a lot by text. They're misinterpreting. And that's how I've literally found my jam.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's sometimes very hard to read humor or tone or those things in a text. And so, we talk with our children sometimes, like when they're texting with their friends about this or that, like, just pick up the phone. Like, we can just call someone. Like, you're allowed to do that now. But it's, this generation, and we've all become used to communicating versus, the different channels for ease and use and all the reasons. So it sounds like because everyone is using those different communication tools, is there a specific kind of ideal client that you look for or that you try and help?
Well, recently it's those, I look at my 2 best clients are both attorney firms.
Mm-hmm.
And another is the second, which is, and they kind of do this week to week, right, is a bookkeeping accounting.
So professional services.
Yes. Well, and strictly those 2, because there's so much miscommunication that happens between, and they always, well, not always, but they're mostly dealing with sensitive issues, right? Attorneys are dealing with sensitive
law
business
and money
issues. Yes. Law and money. There's only one topic that's more sensitive than either of those. And that's, of course, the 3-letter word sex. And,
yes.
and the number one, and then we go full circle, right? What are the 2 main reasons for divorce? Money and sex. So
do you do relationship coaching, or is it mostly strictly business?
it's strictly business. When you think about it, though, it is all relationship.
Yeah, well,
So
I meant personal, yes, romantic
yeah,
relationship versus,
but here's the thing, Jeffrey. When I meet with clients that are looking for me to be their business coach, one of the things that I tell them is, look, we are going to make sure that you're in integrity with your faith, your family, and your business. Now, as soon as I say that word faith, people go, oh, no, he's a Jesus freak. Well, I happen to be a follower of Christ. Yes. And is it something that I promote to people? No, not unless they ask me my point of view. And then, of course, we'll have a discussion. I want people to get connected. I had a Muslim client for a year, and I reconnected them to their faith because I came up with an outside the box way for them to practice their faith. Because she was like, and it's a story for another day. I'll just say that it was a lady-owned business, and she, men usually lead their worship.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did a 180-degree turn and said, who owns your business, a man or a woman? And,
yeah,
so it's this communication and relationship with self, with faith, and with your business. And so many times as an entrepreneur, we're 85% business, 14.5% family, if we're lucky, and 0.5% faith. And when that balance happens, magic happens.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, one of the things when I ask you the question about are you a relationship coach, I think if you're in business, you're in a relationship, in the relationship business. So
Yes.
that's very aligned. And the idea of your goal is to connect people and think outside the box. You said some of my magic words, so thank you for that. I know we are aligned in that way. And I think, again, in terms of faith, so I'm not a religious person. I like to think I'm a spiritual person. And I think it's important that faith can be defined differently by different people, but it's an element that's part of who you are.
Yes.
That I think gives context. You talked about the word context to a lot of the things that you do in your life. And I think that's, for some people, it can be really important. I think one of the things is that people who lose their faith for one reason or another and are looking or feeling that something is missing can often find that when they return to it,
Yeah.
and reinvigorate it. Well, we're going to switch from faith. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I jump? No, I was just going to say one more thing to speak to coaches, because so many business coaches, people ask, so do you do life coaching as well as business coaching? And if you talk to, there's a book out there called When All Boats Rise, and it's written by 12 coaches. And in that book, they talk about, a lot of them will say, look, 60% sometimes of what I do is life coaching. Right. But quote unquote, but people don't talk about that because life coaches don't make as much money as business coaches. So they don't want to lower their income. I have, just in the last year, Geoffrey, I've just said, you know what? I'm going to just speak openly with people and say, if they ask me, do I do life coaching? Yes, because guess what? Your life is your business.
Yeah, I think people often look for distinctions to help them, wrap their head around their things, but it's not always black and white. It's most things are shades of gray. And I think, again, when you're trying to help someone in their business, you want to use whatever tools you can. And as you said, your life, work-life balance people talk about, which I think sometimes it's work and life. It's all together, and especially for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, yes. I think when they're running their own business, I work from home a lot. My kids are around. Like, there's no way to escape the fact that what I'm doing is, personally motivated and has a lot of interplay with my family and friends and and all those things. I become friends with people I work with, and so it's always a little bit challenging sometimes. Yeah, shades of purple, Jay. And Christian, who's commenting, I hope Christian says we got a black screen, but Jay's clearly seeing the purple because that's where I'm oriented. All right, I want to ask you a question about business resources to help everyone out. So can you name a business book or a podcast you think is worth the time of either listening or reading?
So Um, uh, I'm going to say very quickly, because I was just thinking about this as you said it earlier before we started the show. There's a book that I'm currently reading. And before I inject that, I'm going to do a quick, very quick Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the only reason I bring it up is because of something that I learned in that is super fast for me to share with everybody, called habit stacking. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before.
I'm familiar with the book. I've read bits of it. It's been recommended to me. And yeah, but why don't you share what habit stacking is? Because I think it's a really great concept.
So habit stacking, like we brush our teeth every morning and every night, to be able to connect a habit to that. So for instance, if you were wanting to make sure that you did or read a certain devotional, to be able to grab your phone as you're brushing your teeth and read that devotional, so that you get in the habit of every time you do that, you're brushing your teeth. That's stacking one habit on top of another habit, which really helps to cement it into your brain. So I wanted to put that, and it's going full circle into the book that I'm super impressed with, which is Winning the War in Your Mind, right? So habit stacking is in your mind, and this is why I came to this. And this book is written by Craig Groeschel, and it is, we're about 2/3 of the way through reading it currently on a show and discussing it. And the thing that I find so amazing about the book is Craig Groeschel is a pastor. And the way that, just like John Maxwell, who most people know, and has a leadership Bible, this Winning the War in Your Mind, what both of them are doing is they're using common everyday things and things that are maybe spiritual, and bringing them and stacking them. This is why the habit stacking onto your belief and your business, and so showing you how to have them both align and empower you by stacking them. Unbelievable. So that's it. Yeah, Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel.
Love it. And I think one of the things seems to be kind of a theme is it's not an either or situation. It's not like you only focus on business, and when you're in business, you forget about everything else that has to do with your life. And the word integrity can be applied equally. I think it's almost the way in which business becomes personal, because when you're in integrity, you're making sure that the way you conduct business aligns with the way that you want to be as a person, as a human being. So I think it really makes sense that you stack those things together, because that's the way how do you want to be in the world? How do you want to be in business? When I talk about different ways people should do something, and be in integrity, I usually describe it this way. It's good for business, and it's good. It's both those things. And so that's, like, it's, because when they're asking about, should I, let them know about this problem, or should I, yes, because when you are in integrity, it's good because it's the way you should live, but it's also good for the business relationship, because now they know you're going to be honest and all those things with them. Now, brands sometimes get it right and sometimes don't. Sometimes, you see on social media when something goes wrong, they try and cover it up, and it makes things so much worse. And some, because my
people want to know, people want to know what you're covering up.
Oh, it
it's
makes
like hiding. It's like,
yeah, it always ends up worse. And I always think that when you think about businesses, I think human beings generally and consumers understand everything's not going to go perfectly all the time. And I think when something less than great happens, it's actually an opportunity for brands to show how great they are. Something goes wrong, and how you react to it can be a win, because you're like, okay, we had to recall this, or this didn't work. First of all, you admit it, you apologize, and then you handle it in a way that, is helpful to the people that are experiencing it. So what's a brand that you admire, and why?
Well, to finish on your point, I think there are people that actually, there are clients, I know I've had clients that test you because they want to know how you handle a breakdown.
Sure.
Right. And I think the brand, one of the brands that I admire the most out in the world is Nike. And I would say the main reason that I like it is that they've captured the heart and soul of people in very short, very concise points. You know, when I even hear the word or see the word, all I can think of is just do it.
Yeah, I think there's
And
something about the brand that's been very consistent over time, and they've
mhm,
really connected the ethos of the brand to the best of what being human means. As a
yes,
competitor, in what, yes, they're a sports brand, but they're also a human brand in the way that they're really celebrating that, striving for greatness, or however you want to define it.
and the one thing that we as human beings, we're great at procrastinating. We're great at, it's like, oh, I wish I could be a millionaire. Well, are you taking the actions consistent with that, right? And so Nike says, just do it.
Right.
Don't think
Yeah.
about it and sit on the couch with your feet up eating bonbons. Get off the couch and just do it. So that's what I love about
Yeah,
it.
and that's kind of why I do this program. Like, I was like, oh, I should do a LinkedIn, and that just do it comes into play. And the way I relate it to people is I talk about imperfect action. A lot of people are stuck because they're afraid, oh, if I do this, it won't work out well. Well, guess what? It ain't gonna work out at all if you don't do it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to go forward, and imperfect is okay because you've actually
It
done
is.
something. Um,
What is it? Fail
so
forward, right?
yeah, well, there was a quote I liked, which was, "Even when you fall flat on your face, you're still moving forward." So there you go. So we're all LinkedIn Live. This is also on YouTube. But can you name? We have lots of connections, and I ask this question, and it's always interesting because people, it's an opportunity to shout someone out, which I think is a good opportunity. But then there's the challenge of like, well, you didn't name Jay Handler or someone like that, even though we all love Jay Handler. Um, so can you name a LinkedIn connection you're glad that you're connected to,
Yes, I can. And it's
among
been,
many?
yeah, there's a tremendous amount of them. And what I would say that lights me up the most is, and his name is Stephen Musilski, and of course I mess up his last name.
I
And
know him.
he,
Yeah, I'm aware of him. So I'll definitely,
yeah,
make sure I get it right.
yeah, and it
413.
413, yep.
Yeah.
Thankfulness, encouragement, and forward thinking. And his whole premise is to impacting the thinking of the affluent and the influential. And one of his goals, right, is to, when you add, when you're adding thankfulness into life and encouragement into life and forward thinking, how does that impact people and where does it leave them? And it's a little bit like why I chose Nike is because it's that just do it. It's and stop. We live in a world, I think, where media thrives on negativity, negative drama versus positive drama. I'm sad to say that negative wins. It seems to garner more attention, more money, more dollars, more space on the computer. And what he does is pulled to the opposite side.
Yeah, I always say two things in that regard. One is, I don't watch the news as often as I would, because when I refer to news, I refer to bad news. It's not, there's no news on the on the TV. It's bad news that's on the TV because they seem to thrive on the stories of crisis and all the things that are going wrong. And then again, I think I'm oriented with, I try and be positive because there's plenty of negativity out in the world, and why would I want to contribute to it? So I really like that, and I think it's really important that we all do our bit to try and put positive vibes out there. Why would you want to do that? Um,
The
and I
other
do that with
reason,
Purple.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I do love purple, but I want to know what's your favorite color.
Well, it is purple, and just another to caption with Stephen is this, and you probably remember this. This is his bio picture, right? It's an old payphone,
No, yes,
and that local call, keeping it personal, getting on the phone, connecting. Like you started this whole thing when you said to your with your kids, right? Why text to each other? Get on the phone. And so I had to just bring that up because that's his bio picture on everything. My favorite color is purple. Why? So there's a couple reasons. One is wine. So for 23 years, I was a wine and liquor salesman. I'm a certified sommelier. I had my first drink of wine when I was 5 at the dinner table, and we lived next to winery in France for 3 years, and actually lived next to grapes, not the winery. And for me, wine and food are synonymous. Purple's the color. And then I found out about the origin of purple. And here in Minnesota, there's a Renaissance Festival, and my costume is purple. It is seriously purple, a lot of purple. And
I love it.
and I was Lord Leicester, the wine master of the Renaissance, for 13 years. And I went to Chicago to Bristol Renaissance, where there's a queen there. There's a king here at the one in Minnesota, and it's always Queen Victoria. And nobody's allowed to wear purple. None of the actors and the people that work there can wear purple. Like some of the vendors can, of course, but the people that are part of nobility and stuff. And so they took my costume away and gave me another costume to wear for the day, right? Because I was there as a visiting guest. So I had this whole, I looked like a musketeer because I had this black tight, oh, it was horrible. Because it's just not me. And I found out that purple was made from a secretion from a mollusk in Turkey. And it takes like 1,000 little mollusks of these to squeeze out enough dye, right? Because they push dye out to hide themselves and to make purple. So it was a very regal, royal color because it was so expensive. And I don't remember all the specifics, but if you look it up and look at the history of purple, it will blow your mind how expensive it was. So that's why there's so much associated with it. Plus, I was born and raised in England, as you know, because your wife's English, and purple is royal.
One of the reasons, among others, that I am a big fan of purple, because I married a British girl, and I would say it's my way of, because it's a regal, royal color, it's my way of honoring the crown. I was going to say the queen, but sadly, it's now the crown because the king.
Yeah.
So the queen is dead. Long live the king. So I love creating stories, in particular animated videos. If we were going to create an animated video for the business of Coach Les, what would you want people to remember about your business?
Ooh. The clarity with which integrity brings to the workability of life. I believe that integrity is about, I have what I call an integrity wheel. And my wheel consists of spokes, and each spoke is a part of your life. And when the spokes are not tight, the wheel wobbles, spokes break. And to restore the integrity, i.e. the workability of the wheel, we have to get things complete. We have to have conversations to get them complete. And I remove the emotion from situations, because emotion is all made up. It's all made up by our minds. And so my goal is to set emotion aside and use the workability of this wheel and the tuning of the wheel so that it runs true. If you've ever heard that statement before.
I love it. And I think visually the wheel would be really fun to create.
It's unbelievable, because then you can take a spoke called work and you can pull it out and then make its own wheel. So the cogs and how it all works together. And this is what I love about it, is when people go, well, I leave work at work and I I don't bring it home. I'm like, well, good luck with that, especially with smartphones. And it's not realistic anymore because of the way everything's connected. If you have a broken spoke in a wheel, I've called your cog at work, it is going to have an impact on the main wheel. And when people get that, they understand the importance of completing all the wheels. Like if you yelled at your son before you left and you regretted it, and you walk into the office with that regret, you want to pick up the phone, call your son, text him, say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I lost my cool. Please forgive me. We'll talk about it later. And I apologize, which then
restores. Right.
There you go.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Finally, just for a little fun, can you name a favorite character, animated character from the pantheon of animation?
Tasmanian Devil. So this sits on my desk, and it's actually a little laminated sheet of integrity, and that Tasmanian Devil is my staple remover.
Nice. I was a big fan of his growing up, big Bugs Bunny fan, and I just loved his energy. I think that was the thing that, he brought energy to everything in a way that I thought was, he also, I think, was, he's supposed to be this wild devil, but he seemed very without any interest in harm. Like he seemed very innocent, almost childlike in some ways, despite all the fact that, so for me there's something about him that's always appealed to me.
And the fun thing about it is, I'm a country western dancer and a line dancer, and I was nicknamed the Spinner because I like to spin, and I don't, if I'm used to doing it over a period of time, to get back in it, I can spin and spin and spin, and I don't get dizzy. So that's why.
And Jay's asking if you can say your name in Tasmanian. Do you have a name in Tasmanian?
No.
We'll have to find out.
Does that mean say it backwards? That would be sell. Yes, sell.
Well, Coach Les, we will hope that people will sell, that you can tell people the concept of integrity, which you do so well. I want to thank you for being a part of this, for sharing your wisdom, your energy, and it's been really fun. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Really appreciate you. And thank you for always being such a contribution when you show up on the stages that I'm a part of, sometimes at the top of the room, sometimes in the middle with you. I just appreciate who you are. And thanks for bringing purple to the world as well.
Go Purple. Take care.
Take care.